Solar panel demand is exploding right now. Every continent, every month, the numbers are undeniable. Gigawatts being added to grids faster than they've ever been added before. Government mandates in Europe, subsidies in the US through the Inflation Reduction Act, rapid deployment across Asia, especially China. On paper, it looks like an energy transition story we should all be celebrating. And in many ways, we should. But there's a problem sitting underneath this entire picture that very few people are talking about, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Solar panels need silver, not a little, a lot. And the amount of silver going into every new panel has been increasing, not decreasing. Meanwhile, the global silver mining industry cannot keep pace. It hasn't kept pace. And the math, when you actually do it, doesn't work. Not in the short term. Not without something giving. That's what we're breaking down today. Not with doom and gloom, just with the actual numbers and what they mean for the market, for the energy transition, and for the people paying attention to where this leads. Let's get into it. First, let's establish what we're actually talking about here. Solar panel manufacturing isn't some small niche application for silver. It's the single largest industrial consumer of the metal on the planet right now. The Silver Institute, which tracks global silver supply and demand more carefully than any other organization, estimated that solar panel manufacturing consumed approximately 232 million ounces of silver in 2024. That's a real number. That's documented. That's roughly a quarter of total global annual silver mine production consumed in one industry in a single year. Just solar. Not jewelry, not electronics, not industrial applications, just photovoltaic panels. 2 years ago, that number was around 140 to 150 million ounces. The jump from 150 to 232 million ounces in the span of 24 months is not a small shift. That's growth that matters. Now, why is solar consuming so much silver? Every photovoltaic panel manufactured anywhere in the world uses silver paste for electrical contacts. It's a conductive material that helps move electrons from the cell to the wiring that feeds power into the grid. Without it, the panel doesn't work. And here's the part that most people don't realize. The amount of silver per panel has not been decreasing as efficiency improved. It's been increasing. Newer cell technologies like TOPCon and heterojunction designs, which are more efficient than the standard PERC cells that dominated a few years ago, actually require heavier silver loadings. They use more of the material, not less. Manufacturers moved to these new designs because they're more efficient overall, but the efficiency gains came at the cost of using more silver. That's the trade-off they made, and it's one that's being made globally. The demand projection for 2025 and beyond is not stabilizing. It's continuing to grow. The International Energy Agency projects that annual solar installations will reach 300 gigawatts by 2027. For context, we're at roughly 250 gigawatts of annual installations now, so we're adding 50 more gigawatts of solar capacity per year on top of an already accelerating base. Every gigawatt of solar installation requires silver. Every new mandate, every subsidy, every grid upgrade in service of electrification pulls more silver out of the ground, or more likely, pulls it from existing stockpiles because ground production can't keep up. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act alone has catalyzed billions of dollars in domestic solar manufacturing investment. Companies are building new factories. China is ramping up production. India is deploying solar at a staggering rate. The European Union set targets that require continuous acceleration. Every major economy on Earth recognizes that solar is the energy transition. So the direction of solar demand is locked in. It's not going sideways, it's going up. Now let's talk about the other side of this equation, mine supply. Total global silver production, according to the Silver Institute and multiple independent sources, hovers around 820 to 850 million ounces annually. That's been relatively flat for years. There's no massive new primary silver mine coming online. There's no discovery that's going to change this picture in the next 5 to 10 years. The reason is important to understand. About 70 to 75% of the world's silver is produced as a byproduct. Silver is mined alongside copper, lead, zinc, and gold. Most silver comes out of the ground because someone was digging for something else. That creates a unique supply constraint. You can't simply turn up silver production when the price rises. If the copper market slows, if base metal demand weakens, the silver byproduct coming with it slows too. Silver supply is structurally tethered to decisions made in entirely different commodity markets. The pipeline for new primary silver mining projects is thin. Permitting timelines are long. Capital costs are enormous. Environmental and social licensing requirements have gotten stricter. A new primary silver mine today takes a decade from discovery to first production. That's the baseline. Add in regulatory delays, operational challenges, and the fact that deposits are getting smaller and deeper, and the timeline stretches even further. There is no supply response coming that's going to resolve this in the next 3 to 5 years. It's structurally impossible. Recycling, which captures silver from industrial scrap and end-of-life products, has plateaued. It hasn't grown much in years. It's already pretty efficient at the margins, where it makes economic sense. So when we add up the components, we get this. Globally, supply is at a ceiling. Demand is accelerating. The gap between the two is the market's real story right now. Let me put some actual numbers on this because the math is what matters. The Silver Institute documented that the global silver market was in a physical supply deficit in 2024. Demand exceeded supply by somewhere in the range of 150 to 200 million ounces, depending on which methodologies you use. That means the world consumed more silver than mines and recycling produced. That gap had to be filled from somewhere. It came from above-ground stockpiles. Existing silver sitting in vaults and warehouses held by institutions and individuals got drawn down to make up the difference. Now think about what that means over multiple years. If the deficit is 150 150 to 200 million ounces per year, and that happens for consecutive years. Above-ground stocks don't just shrink slightly, they shrink materially, the cushion gets thinner, and we're not talking about vague estimates here. The COMEX registered silver inventory, which represents the deliverable stockpile available against futures contracts, has been declining despite recent rebounds. The London Bullion Market Association vault data shows steady declines in stored silver. The vault drawdowns are real and documented. Here's where the timing matters. Solar demand is accelerating right now, in 2025. We're not talking about some future scenario. The installations are happening today. The silver is being consumed today. Mine production can't accelerate to match it, and above-ground stocks are already being drawn down. The math is running in real time. The global energy transition is real. It's not speculative. Governments have committed, subsidies are flowing, installations are accelerating, and every single new panel being deployed is consuming silver at rates that exceed what's being newly mined. That's a mathematical reality. So what happens next? There are a few scenarios here, and they're worth looking at clearly because each one has different implications. Scenario 1. The price rises enough to slow demand or accelerate recycling or pull forward some supply response. In this scenario, silver prices climb materially from here, high enough that the economics of recycling improve, high enough that some industrial users find substitutes or reduce usage slightly, high enough that it becomes profitable to stretch mine supply even at the margins. The deficit narrows, the market re-equilibrates at a higher price level. This is the textbook market response. Higher prices ration scarce supply. This could happen, but there are limits to it. Some industrial demand is inelastic. Solar manufacturers need silver. Electronics manufacturers need silver, defense and aerospace applications need silver. You can't substitute away from it easily. And the energy transition is backed by government policy that's not price sensitive. Governments aren't going to say, oh, silver got expensive, let's abandon solar. They're going to say, okay, we'll allocate more resources to get the silver. So the price rise needed to materially impact demand might have to be substantial. Scenario 2. The deficit persists and accelerates. In this case, above-ground stocks continue to drain. The vault drawdowns continue. The coverage ratio of paper claims to physical metal keeps climbing. The system becomes more fragile with each passing year. At some point, when supplies get tight enough, the market could experience a delivery squeeze where demand for physical silver exceeds available supply, and prices move sharply higher. This is the scenario that serious market observers worry about because the resolution can be sudden and violent. It doesn't have to be, but the conditions create vulnerability. Scenario 3. Supply comes from an unexpected source. Maybe recycling picks up faster than expected due to technology improvements. Maybe a new mining project comes online faster than the historical timeline suggests. Maybe industrial demand weakens due to a recession. Any of these could ease the math. This is possible. But the base case for mining is not acceleration. The base case for recycling is that we're already pretty efficient. And industrial demand, especially solar, is mandated and subsidized, so it's not recession-proof the way discretionary demand might be. Scenario 4. The energy transition slows, not because of silver, but because of economic headwinds, political changes, or some other force that reduces solar installations globally. In that case, silver demand would moderate, the deficit would shrink, and pressure on the market would ease. This could happen, but the direction of policy globally is toward more solar, not less. And the push for electrification and clean energy is backed by trillions of dollars in capital deployment across multiple governments and continents. That's not reversing quickly. What I'm laying out here is that each scenario that resolves this math problem has constraints or has the potential to be disruptive. There's no easy way out. Here's what matters most right now. The data is clear. Solar demand is explosive. It's not slowing. Mine supply is flat. It's not accelerating. The gap between the two is real, and it's growing. Above-ground stockpiles are being drawn down to fill it. That process has a shelf life. You can drain vaults for a while, but not forever. At some point, physical availability becomes the limiting factor. When that happens, the price has to move. It's inevitable. The only variable is timing, magnitude, and whether the resolution happens gradually or suddenly. For investors and people paying attention to this market, the silver-solar connection is one of the most underappreciated structural themes in commodities right now. Everyone talks about EVs, everyone talks about 5G, but solar is right there with them. It's consuming massive quantities of an already tight commodity, and the demand curve is locked in. It's not going down, it's going up. The math doesn't work without either supply increasing, demand decreasing, or prices rising enough to force some combination of both. And given the constraints on supply and the inelasticity of solar demand, the path of least resistance is higher silver prices. Not tomorrow, not necessarily next month, but eventually. Because eventually is when the math has to resolve. If this breakdown was useful, if it helps you understand one piece of this market a little more clearly, consider subscribing. I don't chase trends, I follow data. And right now, the data is pointing in a direction that's worth paying attention to. I'll be watching the solar installation numbers this quarter, I'll be watching the Silver Institute's supply deficit estimates, and I'll be watching what the price does when reality catches up to the math. Thank you for your time.